What is going on? My name is Michael Hacker, and this is the Hacker Outdoors podcast. This is episode number 4 with my next guest and return guest, Joey McCormack. Let's jump right in, Joe. So, thanks for joining us again. I really do appreciate it. What's been going on in the past couple weeks? I know you just started a new league. You were telling me about it. You had a tournament last weekend?
Yeah, I fished with let me get the exact name here so I can get it right. The Pennsylvania, it's the ABA, American Bass League series. It's the ABA, the same as I fish when it's like coes and boaters. But when I fished the Maryland, Virginia division of that, it's coes versus coes, boaters versus boaters. This division they have is everybody against everybody. So there still is co-anglers, but the co-anglers are also competing against the boaters and the other co-anglers. So it's everybody against everybody. That was on the Chesapeake Bay last Saturday. It went well, really good weather. I ended up in 6th place.
That's awesome.
Throughout the day, I had my limit real early, probably within the first 2 hours. And then throughout the rest of the day, I caught a couple small guys, nothing that would call any of my fish out. And then with about 3 minutes left on the way in, I caught one more fish, probably about a 2-pounder, to call out one of my real small guys. So overall, it was a good day. The weight wasn't there that I was looking for. But 6 is a good finish.
Well, like you were saying, it's a little bit tough nowadays, or at least in the fall, to be catching fish. So I think that's awesome.
It's funny because there was another tournament going on, and the team that was leading after the first day had 24 pounds. The one guy caught a 9-pounder.
Wow.
So some of the weights were real. There was a wide gap in some of the weights. Some guys were catching huge ones and some guys were catching small ones, but yeah, pretty typical of the fall.
Wow. That's something, man.
Oh, yeah.
I was just on one of the Facebook New Jersey fishing groups, and this guy posted, you were talking about last time you and I were on this together about the California bass being these massive creatures. And I think we were talking about down in Florida. I forget the name of the lake you were telling me about, but someone posted a photo. They were using one of those massive baits. It was like, had to have been a foot long, multi-layered, had joints in it so that it would look like it's swimming shad. And this guy caught a massive bass. I'm always very skeptical when I look online and find pictures, especially on forums and Facebook, of things that people are catching. But this bass was beautiful. Wherever he caught it, it was gorgeous looking. And, it wasn't like one of those where he was holding it out in front of him, so it looked like it was massive. It was pretty close to him, and you can tell this was a big bass. So you can definitely still catch them. But, I mean, I think that, I haven't done the Chesapeake, but I'm assuming it's kind of like what it is up here right now. It's a little slow.
It was a little slow. A lot of the other guys in the competition I was fishing didn't do as well as us in the top 6, because after the top 6, nobody had a limit. Everybody was scattered with like 1, 2 fish maybe, and there was only 6 of us who caught a limit. So it was tough, but like I said, that other tournament, that one team, it was a team tournament. They cracked a huge bag. They're locals, but it was nuts to see the kid's 9-pounder on there. And I think he was fishing the same area we were in. He just got the big one off. I mean, I was hooked up with one that we lost at the boat that it was a 5-pounder easy.
Wow.
It was on a crankbait, but with the crankbaits, if they don't eat that thing, there's a good chance you can lose them here or there, because they'll just kind of swipe at the back hooks. We couldn't get it in. At the boat, it came off. That was a heartbreaker.
I had that with a fluke I caught a couple of weeks ago, right? I was getting him out of the surf, and he bit the back of the crankbait, and as soon as I got him up onto the sand, he flopped right off of the thing and swam away.
Yeah. I mean, this fish hit my crankbait, and it stopped me. Like, it it stopped the line, and I mean, it was a huge fish. And I'm guessing it just, you could see on the crankbait, because it was a new crankbait I was throwing, you could see where it bit, kind of, because you could see the paint was scratched from his teeth, and it just had the back part of it. So, you know, I'm not a huge crankbait guy. I'm beginning to like them more and more here lately, but that was a tough fish. But it was a good tournament. It was fun. It was nice. The weather, I think it was like 73 that day.
It's been unbelievably beautiful, right? Well, today it's not, but we finally hit fall. We finally hit fall. Yeah, we went hiking, I think, that weekend you were fishing, and I always bring my Tenkara rod, which is behind me somewhere. Oh, here it is. And, you know, a nice little wet fly, backcountry, 12-foot long Tenkara rod. And I always keep this just in the backpack along with my fishing net. And I have it up here because I'm trying to rearrange my stuff a little bit. And there's this, it's called there's this little brook. I won't name where it is. It's coming out of this pond. I'll call it a pond, and goes down into a series of cascading falls. And I'm like, I'm going to bring the rod. And, you know, I checked the forums, didn't find anyone who's fished there that has talked about it, at least. But for all intents and purposes, it looked like it would be a good brook trout stream. You know, it had all the right characteristics, and then it dumped into one of the major fishing rivers here in Jersey. And nothing. I mean, you know, you get used to fishing and just not catching anything sometimes, especially when you're going to new waters and you're not really used to what with the terrain or anything like that. I've never been here before. But you probably saw on my Instagram page that we get down to the main river where this brook dumps into it. And I'm fishing from the bank there. I don't have my waders on me because we had just hiked 5 miles, and I was not hiking 5 miles either with the waders or with them on. And Donna's with me, and I'm just kind of cast, and she's hanging out on the bank, and I got my fly stuck in a tree across the river. So it was my only olive color woolly bugger. So I decided to, you know, not going to leave it there, and cross the river, the freezing river. Even though it was beautiful out, the water was still really cold. And just called it a day. I was like, screw this. I'm done. I'm done after that, man. Like, no more in me. But then we went to the beach the next day because it was so gorgeous. We went down to Sandy Hook, and we went down there a couple times this summer. I think I remember telling you it was packed. This was just as packed as it was in the middle of summer, and they only had one bathroom open, so there was garbage everywhere. It's a carry in, carry out park. People just leaving trash everywhere. But there had to have been a good 50, 60 fishermen up and down this stretch of the beach. And
yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, so I brought my stuff. I always do when I go down there, and tried my hand at some striper fishing, or a tog or blackfish they call it. Along the rocks, should be hitting now. And I fished for probably 4 hours straight. I had a single bite, and I lost 2 of my lures, and I got so annoyed. I was like, all right, sunset, let's leave. I'm done. And I should have stayed through sunset, but I was just, you lose a couple lures and you're just like, for no reason at all, getting stuck in rocks or whatever. And you're just like, I'm done. Like, you're calling it a day. Like, nope, I'm good. Go get some surf taco, hang out with the wife downtown Red Bank, and we'll go home.
That's it, and go home. Everybody has those days. I mean, we were fishing these docks on Saturday, and when you're fishing real tight docks from the back of the boat and you're left-handed and you got to make like these really precise pitches and casts, it's hard from the back.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a professional at that.
Oh yeah, you are. You can skip a bait like 300 miles. I'm pretty sure you can do it across the country.
Oh my gosh.
When you're in the back of these boats, you have the power poles you got to contend with. You got the motor. You got the console. I mean, you got a real tight area on some of these boats, and it made for some fun, difficult cast on Saturdays and snagging. I mean, it was a tough day, but the bite was good. But it's never fun losing baits.
But I always, I kind of like the challenge of of it too sometimes, right? Like you get annoyed. You definitely want to catch fish, but if you were always catching fish and you always went to the same spot and you knew exactly what they were getting, like I would say it would lose its appeal.
Oh yeah,
You
it would
want
be
to,
so boring.
yeah, you want to get, you want to catch fish for sure. Like that's the end goal. I mean, if you're fishing for sustenance and this is how you're living, yeah, you got to catch those fish. But as a pleasure fisherman, I'll say, or leisure fisherman, it's it is what it is. It's being out on the water that's actually the fun part for me, and that's what I do.
Yeah, you figure, I don't know, Saturday. Let's see, what time did we finally launch? We launched at sunlight, let's say, but I think it was like 6:45, maybe 7.
Hmm.
We were out there till I think we were all due back in at 3:00. So 8 hours of fishing, and the time flies by, And if you tell a lot of people you're going to sit on a boat for 8 hours and maybe only have, I don't know, 2 bites, 3 bites, they're going to say that's a boring time. But to me, that time flies by. I mean, I said it last time we talked. These competitions, 8-hour day goes by in the blink of an eye. Like you wouldn't believe.
Well, that 4 hours on surf fishing, it was a blink of an eye. Like I didn't go to the bathroom, I
Yeah.
didn't eat anything. My wife's like, "Are you hungry? Like, you good? You wanna?" I'm like, "Why? How long has it been?" My G-Shock recently, died. It needs a new battery, so I didn't have my watch on. I'm like, I don't even care what time it is. I'm down here, kind of just enjoying myself. But that brings up a great point, and I think you and I had been talking about this a little bit. My grandfather used to talk about growing up on Long Island and how low tide they would just go down to the little tidal areas and just with not even nets, I guess baskets, and just pick up fish that were just flopping around on the beach or in the mud. And I couldn't imagine what that must have been like, right? Like just these wild fish. But that brought me down the path of it. I told you the story, and I want to read a little excerpt from it. But like my great uncle, who I'd never met, I had known a little bit about him as far as his name goes, but I was doing a little family research, and turns out I knew he had owned a boat called the Rosie, and he owned part of Montauk, or like a house on a Montauk or something like that. And they were avid fishermen, and this was, World War II time. So they were out there fishing. And my grandfather would tell me these stories, and he'd be like, "Yeah, your Uncle Harry was a famous fisherman." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" You think it's just kind of, tall tales or family tales.
Right.
And lo and behold, I do a quick Google search during this search, and I found him. He's actually in a book that is written by an Alan Zililio and Mara Bobson. I'm probably destroying that. And it's Amazing But True Fishing Tales. And it was published in 2004. I'm going to read a quick little excerpt of it. And it's actually quite interesting. So, his name's Harry Alfandre, great uncle. It says, having reeled in many tuna while fishing from his 30-foot boat, the Rosie, Harry Alfandre of Long Island decided he needed a new challenge: to try and catch tuna from a rowboat. Okay.
That's ballsy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, good for him. After the Rosie towed a rowboat far from shore off of Montauk on August 12, 1950, Alfandre hopped into a smaller craft alone and began chumming. Minutes later, he hooked into a big tuna. According to fellow anglers in nearby boats, there was some question as to whether Alfandre had the tuna or the tuna had Alfandre, because the fish was towing his boat around the fleet of weekend fishermen. Wrote Raymond R. Camp of the New York Times outdoor writer at the time, Alfandre battled the tuna for 3 hours in the rowboat. He was prepared
in the middle of the ocean.
in the middle of the ocean off of Montauk. He was prepared to handle the fish without help and brought along a flying gaff tied with a rope. When he had maneuvered the big tuna alongside his frail craft, Alfandre made a sweep with the gaff, sinking the big gaff hook into the tuna's jaw. There was a flurry of water foam, tuna, and Alfandre, and when things quieted down, the reel was singing and the angler was still in the rowboat. The fight continued for another half hour, and when the fish once more had been brought to almost near the boat, or the boat almost to the fish, the line parted. Somewhere there is a nice tuna with a nice new gaff hook and several feet of rope hanging from its jaw. Alfandre admitted later that it might have posed a problem if he hadn't parted, as getting the tuna into the boat may have been resulting in crowding things a bit. That's wow. I,
That's a crazy story.
strange but true fishing stories, man. Like that's.
I'm pretty sure I saw that. I told you this before. I heard that somewhere else before. I don't remember if it was like a TV show. I'm pretty sure that there was a TV show that had I think it was Dean Cain on there, the Superman guy.
Yeah.
Like what was it called? Like Mysteries at the Museums or something. I think that story was on there because you told me this story, and I'm like, I've heard this before, and
Yeah.
I couldn't remember where. And I'm pretty sure it was on one of those shows, but that's insane when you think about it. To be out in the ocean with a ginormous tuna in a rowboat just being dragged along. I mean, that's insane.
And if I remember correctly, there was so I dug a little bit deeper. I was looking for this New York Times writer, his story and just the size of it. I believe it was over 1,000-pound tuna, and I yeah, like God bless it. Not for me, not a rowboat, man.
Almost suicide in my mind. Like that's like.
Could you imagine doing like even like a quarter of that in the canoe, like
No,
like a 500-pound fish in a canoe? But like
we would end up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh my God, we'd be done.
Screwed.
Did you see the video of the guy down in Florida? I think it was did a little blow up unicorn and he was catching tarpon from it, and the tarpon's dragging.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, that's basically what what my great uncle was doing with a tuna fish, like 1,000
in 1950.
Yeah. Oh my God. But he had
that's insane.
He had a history of doing some crazy things. I mean, my grandfather would always say to me, he never really liked freshwater fishing. He was a saltwater fishing guy. His father apparently was an avid fly fisherman. I found out years later after I began. But he was saying that he would spend his summers and like vacations and stuff like that with his Uncle Harry, and they would go, fishing, and because he was a commercial fisherman. So, he's like, oh, you don't understand what cold is. I was telling him how I was going out. I don't know why I even have a home phone. It sometimes just rings randomly.
This is telemarketers.
It is telemarketers. There you go. So
Jasmine.
So he goes and he's talking about, he's like, well, you don't understand cold. I told him I was fishing that winter. I was like, oh, I need new waders that are a little bit bigger so I can add another layer of socks in it. And he's like, oh, you don't know what cold fishing is. And I was like, okay, of course, this is going to be like one of those stories your parents used to tell you, right? It's like, you used to walk uphill barefoot in the snow to get to school.
Right.
But he's telling a story about how he would go there on winter break and they would do winter cod fishing. And they would go out and just like he did with the tuna fish in the story, they would drag this rowboat behind the 30-foot Rosie or whatever. And he's like, we had these giant barrels that were just filled with, it was long line fishing basically. And he's like, they just were filled with line and hooks. And he's like, they'd make my grandfather, who was in college at the time, get out, or high school, whatever he was, get out of the big boat into the little guy. And they would leave him there, and he would just basically be drifting, and he had a stick, and he would put the stick under a hook, go like this, toss it over, go like this, toss it over, go like this, toss it over, until all the lines were in the water, all the hooks were in the water. And he goes, and you would get to the end, and you would just be, it'd be raining or drizzling or whatever, and he'd be like a sheet of ice, and everything would be a sheet of ice. So the Rosie would come back after the designated time, like an hour or whatever, because they would be doing this in a couple different areas, and pick up my grandfather, reattach the boat to the back of the Rosie, and they would then, go do whatever it was they were doing, hang out, drink, whatever. And then after a couple hours, it would be back to the rowboat, where he would then hand line everything back into the boat. He's like, you don't know what tough fishing is. And I said, I don't want to know what that's like. I mean, I think we all watch the Discovery Channel in some way, shape, or form, and we've seen, some of these fishing shows, and that is a hard life. But could you imagine doing that in a tiny rowboat in the middle of the North Atlantic in the middle of winter?
No. And needless to say, what years are we talking here?
So this was the wartime. So, back in the 40s. I mean, my grandfather
So
just
yeah,
missed World War II because he was too young. So this had to have been high school time. And he said that, they'd be out there and they had, giant nets. I don't know, basically commercial fishing where they drop the net in the water and drag it behind the boat and pull in all these fish. And he said there were times where like they would pull in landmines or, sea mines. And other times there were, run-ins with German U-boats or, attack planes and things like that where, they never got attacked, but, you're out in the middle of the North Atlantic, in the middle of a war where the US and the Allies are trying to cross the Atlantic and the U-boats are trying to get to the United States and cause all this chaos. And, here you go, you just have a bunch of commercial fishermen out there trying to make a living. And he was too old, I think, my Uncle Harry at the point to be in the military. So my grandfather was too young. So
right. That was my point. I mean, here we are. He's out there in a rowboat when meanwhile there's German U-boats and landmines floating around.
right.
And the winter gear they had back then was nothing compared to what we have. I could not imagine how miserable that had to be. I mean,
Well, it made for hard people, man. And that's I started
sure,
watching.
that is very true.
I started watching Port Protection. My buddy Mark recommended it to me, and I'm watching it on demand. And it's a couple of years old. There's only 2 seasons, but it takes place in Port Protection, Alaska. And these people are hard mambo jambos. Like they
Yeah.
don't have anything, but everything that they need, they have to go and provide for themselves. And you think like that's pretty much, that's what the whole world was doing pre-World War II, maybe pre-World War One.
Yeah, not that long ago, really. I mean, so I've been watching this YouTube channel called Ghost Town Living. I don't know if you've seen this. This guy from, I think he was originally from like New York area and then moved out to Austin. He's younger than us, early 30s. He bought Sierra Gordo, which is a ghost town that's right
Yeah,
outside Death Valley. Have
yeah,
you
I
have you
know.
seen that show?
No, but I know what you're talking about. I saw an article about it.
So he bought it, and before he bought Sierra Gordo, this younger guy kind of became famous by buying this old historic home in Austin, Texas, and turned it into a hostel. So, he started a business and started making money, and he bought, up and bought this ghost town. And this guy, really, when he went out there to live, he had no idea how to live off the grid, kind of. And his YouTube channel is just him out there completely by himself in some old, haunted, abandoned ghost town, learning to live in off the grid and build this town back up to what he wants it to be. And it's crazy to see his evolution from when when COVID started. He decided, screw it, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to live. And you can watch his progression from him leaving the city, first getting there, to now, like a year and a half later. It's insane how much he's came along, and it's taught him how to sustain and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool to see. It's kind of crazy, like you said, when you think about it. It's not that long ago, people were doing everything for their livelihoods to stay alive, and how far away from that we've gotten to, depending on computers and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
you wonder, right? Like, everything going on in the world with COVID and whatnot. It's like, I remember when it first started, people were like, "Oh God, if things really hit the fan, Mike, I'm coming to your house." And I said, "Well, no, you're not."
Hey, no.
No, I I liken myself to being somewhat of a protector, right? Like I do think that we have a responsibility to help those around us, and I'm all for that. But like if society, you think of like The Walking Dead, which I never watched, but I hear a lot about it through the years, and just thinking like, well, if you're going to come to like a post-apocalyptic band of people or tribe, whatever you want to call it, like you better bring some skills, right? And I don't care if it's
Exactly.
dynamite's nunchuck skills or something like that. You better bring something.
Something to the table. Nunchuck
So,
skills are good.
yeah, that's always a good one. So I don't. Most people don't have transferable skills to what I would call the real world, like in the post-apocalyptic real world, we'll say. But it's not. I guess this goes back to like the fishing thing, and it's I don't know, man. Like it's got to be hard. I mean, but then again, if you were in a post-apocalyptic society, you wouldn't be using your fishing rod typically to fish, right? Like you would be fishing small fish often. You would be hunting small, hunting often. You would probably be damming up the river like
Right.
Native Americans used to do, and trapping fish in a shallow area and then picking them up. But most people don't know that. I mean, they're not going to know that that's what you should do.
No. Or netting, But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's when you think about it, most people nowadays aren't really in tune with, I guess you could say, the outdoors and outdoor kind of living, that survival living. Like where I live at, if grocery stores just shut down, people would be screwed. They would have no idea how to go out there, get their own food, kill it, clean it and cook it. How much of the population would just die off from starvation? It's nuts when you think about it.
Well, honestly, it's not even just the food, right? Like I just saw something. Donna sent me an article about here in New Jersey. Apparently, there's going to be a toilet paper shortage. They're already calling it, and it's stupid because people are like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do to wipe myself in the middle of the revamping of the coronavirus?" And it's like, well, look, like number one, you buy what you need, and there shouldn't ever be technically a shortage. Don't stockpile. Don't be that guy or girl. But also, like, there wasn't always toilet paper. What do you think they did? Like,
no, Christ, you go back to even like the 50s. People living out in the Midwest, there was no toilet. They were still crapping in outhouses.
there was newspapers, everything.
Right. And I remember when the whole COVID thing started, that blew my mind, how people went nuts over toilet paper and paper towels.
Yeah.
It's like, really? I mean, if the world's ending, this is what you're going for. Paper towels and toilet paper. I remember I never bought into the whole stockpiling and going nuts when the COVID thing happened. But I did go into the can aisle just to look around and see people were actually buying canned foods and stuff like that, things that had long shelf dates. They weren't. I mean, everybody was buying TV dinners, toilet paper, TV dinners, and things that expire in a week. It's like, oh, well, that's great.
But don't get me wrong. Like, I'm in my workspace. We'll call this my man cave right downstairs. And, outside of here, I've got a shelf and I've got some food in it. Like, but it's canned goods, like stuff that should last a while. And, since we haven't needed it, like you start to cycle through it and begin to use things that we don't really necessarily want to eat, but we bought because we knew that, it was high protein or whatever nutritional value. Like we donated some of that stuff because we didn't want it to go bad. But like I saw people walking through the local supermarket with, I think there were like 10-pound bags of rice. Now I'm talking shopping cart full of rice. And I said, that's not going to last forever, number one. And number two, you're going to have to put that somewhere in like a waterproof container. Otherwise, you're screwed. I know I had a bag of rice down here and I had put it inside a Ziploc bag and it didn't last. So you got to be a little bit smarter with your choices in deciding on what actually constitutes as a survival type of food, a survival type of skill. And then, of course, how do you take care of yourself in these situations? And, I'm not a hunter, but I'm pretty sure I could figure out how the heck to do it if I needed to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could. It's not rocket science,
Right.
But it's just crazy. Like, remember that show Doomsday Preppers? Like,
Yeah.
Some of those people on there. Did you ever see that town? It was like an underground high-rise they built out. They won't tell you where it is.
No,
and,
I
like,
didn't.
the pods are going for like $1.3 million. And some of that stuff's a little crazy, but
yeah.
I mean, I get it to an extent, but to me, looking around, it is kind of sad to see how far away we've gotten from an easier living to now this where we're at now. The guy in that Ghost Town Living show, actually, one of his last episodes, he owns a company he started himself, and apparently he's doing pretty well with it. And he started talking about something you and I talked about, how people nowadays go into business looking just to start something up and turn around and sell it, which that is insane to me. absolutely insane that you put all this time and effort into your business to get it thriving just to turn around and sell it. And,
Yeah.
he was talking about that too, how sad the business world is becoming with stuff like that. These people come up with these brilliant ideas or even just a decent idea just to turn around and sell it to, I don't know, pick one big corporation,
Right.
and giving away their baby just for money. It's all nuts.
Well, I think it's, it's this societal problem that we're having where we just think that, the more and more and more and more is important. I mean, I was talking with my buddy Neil. We were recording a podcast that unfortunately is not making it this week because we had some audio issues, so we need to re-record next week. But we were talking a little bit about how getting into doing certain things, like how some people just aren't okay with um, just figuring things out, that they need their hands held, which is fine. I'm not demeaning that at all. But it's a situation where comfort is really killer, right? Like your comfort is literally killing you little by little. I think, that's one thing that we keep hearing about, right? Wim Hof talking about, I'm not advocating it, but he talks about going out and, taking polar plunges and walking around barefoot and shirtless in the snow. And, he's saying like, put yourself in things that make you uncomfortable, like not just mentally, but physically as well. And do them because it makes you better as a person. And I think a lot of our problems in society have to do with the fact that we don't like discomfort, right? Like it's usually discomfort's usually a sign. We'll say, um, we've learned it's been passed down, fight or flight type situation where we the discomfort tells us to stop. Like this isn't good. We need to get away from it. But actually,
Right.
what it does is it makes us harder as people and makes us appreciate things a little bit better as well. So, go on that extra long hike. Be a little bit uncomfortable. It's only going
Yeah,
to
push yourself.
push yourself a little bit. It's only going to make your life more enjoyable when you come home and you have the creature comforts, you have the heat, you have, whatever.
Get rid of that. But I agree with you. It's watching that show, it's really opened me up to, you know, wanting to almost go back to those times where you were happy with just what you had, and it wasn't so much money, 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 work, 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 for the man type of deal.
Right. Well, I think that's why, like, a lot of what it is we do is like, even though we fish and we do everything. Yeah, I've got a handful of rods, but typically I don't. Most I don't use fancy equipment. I never have. I mean, you think about going back to when you were a kid, when you really enjoyed everything. You didn't know the difference between a $20 rod and reel and a $300 reel and rod. It didn't make a difference if you were catching fish. And it's same thing with hiking. Like Neil and I were talking about specifically hiking and saying like people think that you need to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a nice pair of hiking boots. Yes, they're great. If you can afford it, you can do it, but you do not need that. That is not a barrier to entry to go outside and
No,
begin to do things. And when you start to think like, I need all these things, let me go and I need to work extra hard, or I need more money, or I need a raise, or I need to do this or that to make more money so that I can then go buy more things. That's not going to make you happy. And that's not going to make the outdoors any more
any
accessible
better.
or any better for you. I mean, in some
Right,
cases,
exactly.
yes, you need boots, you need shoes, you need, pants, you need long johns if you're doing stuff in the winter. If you're fishing and you're wading, you need waders, you need wading boots. There are certain things that you do need in certain situations. But I could have easily fished the other day, like I said, from the bank, and I would have been okay. It was not an ideal situation. It would have been a hell of a lot better if I had my waders standing in the middle, casting upstream. But guess what? I didn't have them with me, and I still made it work. And that's probably why I
Exactly.
didn't catch any fish, which is,
You
um,
when I was younger, I didn't have the nice fishing equipment, and I had I don't know, $30 rod and reel combination you get at Walmart. Nothing special, and I could still catch fish. You know,
yeah,
and it was still good. And I don't have hiking boots, and I still go hike, and I still have fun. So
right. It's this whole, it's, I don't want to say it's making an excuse, but I think there's just this misconception that, you need things in order to do more things. And, you're talking a little bit about business, right? Like, really, when you create a business, you can, what do they call it? Strap it or whatever. basically create it from nothing and not spend a lot of money creating a business. And you really don't need a lot, just like a lot of these outdoor activities. I mean, you see guys, and I think it was Jeremy Wade when he was in, I forget where he was in Africa, but they were fishing a river, and there were these guys hand lining for fish in the river. I mean, they literally just had fishing and they had a hook on it. And guess what? They were catching fish, and they were catching massive fish. So if, I'm not advocating or saying that you should do that, but you could easily go out there and just get some line, wrap it around your hand, toss it in the river. I think we told the story last time about brook trout fishing, right? Up in the Alleghenies. Like, I caught fish hand lining. Like, it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do that. But of course, some things just make life a little bit easier, and that's what you're paying for.
The comforts.
Yeah, man.
The comforts. So let's keep going. Have you seen that show, Sierra Gorda?
No, I do definitely have to check it out.
Dude, the guy, the last episode hit me because he was talking. He started some type of startup, and he out of college. And when he bought Sierra Gorda, all these people are saying, "Oh, some rich kid bought Sierra Gorda." He's like, "I'm not rich." His parents were 2 school teachers. He's like, "I started a company." He's like, "I refused to sell it." And he's like, "And I made my money." And he bought this haunted ass ghost town. It's crazy because he's talking when he first moved up there. He's like, I didn't believe in ghosts. He's like, I was a firm no. He's like, after 3 days of being here, he's like, I'm definitely not a firm no anymore.
Well, you know all about how haunting houses are in the state of my belief in that.
Yeah, but I mean, could you imagine? Like, you've been out to the Midwest. Like, he is so far from everything. So the road up to Sierra Gorda, up the mountain to Sierra Gorda, it's 7.5 miles to get to the town, and that's a private. When you say road, it's not a road. It's dirt, switchback, old carriage carts from the 1800s up to there. So once he gets to the bottom of the 7.5 mile road, he still then has another 40-minute drive into quote air quote town, where the grocery store is. And it's not a town when you or I say town, it's not even like the small town by me, which is just a small little town. I mean, it's one little restaurant, one little general store, and a hardware store. That's the town. And he just picked up and, God damn it, and just went. Dropped the notice, bought a ghost town, and I mean, the guy had no building skills. He didn't really know how to build too much.
Well, there's something that's very American, right? Or even, I guess you could say, human nature about that you just manifest destiny, move west and prove yourself and build something with your own hands and make it yours, and nobody can take it away from you. And
exactly.
It's cool. There's something very romantic about that. And, God bless him for doing that, man. That's really cool. I'll have to check it out. I have not watched that.
It's called Ghost Town Living, I think. I mean, I found it. I don't know how I found it. It just popped up on YouTube, and
I'm going on YouTube.
I started
right
watching
now.
it. It's called Ghost Town Living, and never stopped watching it. The guy's nuts. He's exploring these old mines by himself out there now. It's insane how far he's came from day one till now. It's crazy. And the stuff he's finding, because it's been abandoned all that time up there by itself. He's going to these mines and finding mining jackets, and complete mining jackets from the 1800s. He's looking for old Levi's right now.
Oh, those things are worth so much money, man. I went out west. I was looking. I was like, hey guys, can I look at your barn real quick? I want to look for a pair of Levi's in there. And Donald,
they're there.
Donald would look at me.
Constantly in the mines,
everywhere,
finding pieces of them. They're there. It's nuts.
Well, my buddy, growing up, he owned a mine here in Jersey. I think they sold it since his father died, but he would talk about going up there and just exploring these mines that these tunnels that no one had been down in I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you how long. And it's like they were a little bit of Jeep nuts, so um, they had these Willys Jeeps, and they would just be driving up and down these mining tunnels, and you know whatever they were doing up there, which was just fun, and it sounded like it was a really cool thing. But he said they would always be finding things that people left behind, like old
Yeah.
tools, clothes, and lunch boxes, and that's cool, man.
That's
That's really cool.
that's what this guy's doing. Like, he's going into these mines. I mean, I forget how many miles and miles of mines there's up there, and he'll go into these mines. I mean, and these aren't new mines. Like, these are old mines. I think they started mining out there, I think, like in 18. Don't nail me down to this, but I think it was the 50s. It was right before the Civil War, and then in 1864 is when Cerro Gordo became an official town. So that's how old these mines are. And he goes in there, and he's, I mean, you're finding stuff that it literally looks like they just left there, like lunch boxes, dynamite, old dynamite, tools, everything. It's crazy to think about. I couldn't go into a mine like that.
No,
I,
not alone. I mean,
no.
I'm on his YouTube right now, and it's I spent my life savings on an abandoned ghost mine.
Yeah.
As of 2 weeks ago, he had one month 7 living alone in a ghost town. I mean, obviously he's not there all the time. I mean, I've been in places in the Southwest where you do not have cell signal. I don't know exactly where this is.
No, he's got the best part of it is he explains it, because somebody was asking, like, how do you have internet service?
Right.
So he has one of those like hotspots, and the best part is 2 mountains ranged over. There's I forget what company it is, but they have a tower there. So he has basically up there, he can pick up the equivalent, he says, of like 56K or whatever, the old internet, like the dial-up we had.
Yeah.
So when he uploads these videos, he films them, because he did it in the day of life where he shows it. He drives into the town, which is a day trip in itself.
Yeah.
He rents a room at the local motel, which has faster internet, and he has to spend the night there to upload the movie.
Wow, that's pretty crazy, man. But
this guy, excuse my French, this guy's nuts.
that's
It's
cool.
awesome.
If that's what you want to do, man, like, good for you. Like, I have not, like, these people that move in the port protection, like moving up into the wilds, into what they call the bush of Alaska, like, good for you, man. Like, there's something romantic about it. I got Donna watching, and she's like never.
Yeah.
There's a single woman that
Alaskan
moved up there, man. Like a single woman moved up there, and she's like, I don't have any skills. So they're trying to teach her literally everything there is to know about living this sustenance lifestyle, like fishing, hunting. Like, she never shot guns before. It's like,
and to make it worse, they're in the bush of Alaska.
Right. Like, wow. Like, that is good for you. But like, you're lucky that the town is so like close knit that they all take care of each other, because that's not
she
like
would have
moving.
been dead.
Yeah. Oh my God. Could you imagine? But good for her. She's learning, man. She pays attention.
Yeah.
And this is years ago. I don't know where she is today, but like, I'm on, I think, like episode 8 or 9 of season 1. And it's like, you're insane. Like, you moved someplace where you probably shouldn't go. Like in my opinion, like I would probably, I think I would be okay. I don't think I would want to do it forever, but I think I'd be okay for a little while.
I'm to the point where I'm like, I think I can do that.
I think we would survive.
As long as I can fish my tournaments, I'll be happy.
Are there tournaments in Alaska?
I already figured out I'd have to travel real far for my tournaments.
But could you imagine, man? They were long lining for halibut, and this guy caught one in his small little like John style boat V-hole, and I was like, man, that halibut's almost bigger than his boat. Like,
yeah, it's nuts. I mean, they're nuts. I mean, that Cerro Gordo show, I'm telling you, like, I don't get into TV shows or YouTube shows like that. I sort of watched it. I'm like, this guy, like, at first I'm like, he's not going to make it. Like, he's not going to make it. There was a caretaker on property who was there for when he wasn't there, before he moved up there full time. But when COVID hit, the caretaker was like, I want to go home to my wife, be with my wife. So he at that point I was like, this guy's not going to make it. Like, he's not going to make it. Like, when he moved up there for good, I think it was when the whole COVID thing started. So we're talking I don't know, it was like April, whatever it was, but it was
Yeah.
snowing once you started up the road. And he has like a Tacoma. It was a 2-wheel drive, and he got stuck like in 4 inches of snow to the top. And I'm sitting here thinking, this guy, there's no way this guy's going to make this.
Yeah.
He's not going to live. Like, he's not going to live. But he talks about that in one of his episodes where he goes back and how far he's came, and just by being put out there in the elements. And he also talks about how your views on life change, and how nice it is to get back to a simpler type of way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
That's
something
just
about that, right? I don't know, man.
100%. I don't like all. I'm not a big computer guy, and I'm not enough to date on all the technology. And, it's just not for me. And it's not fun, and it kind of freaks me out. And seeing people let computers decide everything for them, or tell them what to do, or figure everything out for them. To me, it kind of takes away your intelligence in a way. It dumbs you down.
Yeah, we're all going to turn into the characters from Wall-E, right? Like,
Right, exactly.
overweight on carts, drinking, massive sodas and really
I mean,
stupid.
when you go back and watch that movie, you can tell yourself, like, I can see this happening, like,
Yeah.
truly see this happening, like,
Yeah.
But
I
people
think
depends.
I don't. But I was going to say I think that the human spirit, for the most part, will persevere. I think
True.
there's a large subset of people who are like, listen, I love my creature comforts. Don't get me wrong. However, like, I also know that I don't want something else dictating my life, right? Like, I'm a technologist, we talk about a lot of things that I do for work, and it's like that's cool. It's a necessity, but like, I used to come home. I remember I was working for a company, and a buddy who worked for another tech company, and he would say like, oh, he's like, man, he's like, I go home and this is the days of Blackberries. And he's like, I don't even look at my Blackberry. I don't turn on my computer. He's like, I don't even really watch TV. He's like, I sit down, I veg and like meditate and go to bed. And I said, what's wrong with you? Like, you kidding me? And I was early on in my tech career. And, after like 2 years, I was like, dude, I get what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like working all day on my computer. I was taking, in the early days, I was tech support. So I was receiving phone calls, I was doing video calls, I was doing whatever. And it's like, I don't even want to look at my phone. I don't want a phone call. Like, I just want to be left alone had Toby at the time. So it was like, I just want to go home to my dog, play with my dog, take him for a nice long walk. And that's it. Read a book, go to bed.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
you have to balance it, right? You can't go too far one way or the other. And I think that
No.
large number of people would agree with you and I would, if I was a betting man, I would say.
I would hope so. But there's some people, that if I don't know, God forbid, cell service would go down, the world would end. The thing was, I mean, I'm not old. You're not really old. But we're from the days when we were teenagers. We didn't have cell phones.
No.
So if you called somebody's house and they weren't there, like, that was it. They weren't there,
Right. And you may
You're
not
waiting
get a
for
phone
them to
call
get
back.
home.
Right.
You may not get a phone call back.
Or the way that you
Or
found out that, where everyone was you started riding your bike or walking around and you found where everyone else's bikes were and you were like, oh, they're all here today. Okay, cool. This
yeah,
is where we're
exactly.
hanging out. Yeah.
Or like if you were in high school and you worked, for example, and you got off work at 10 o'clock on Friday, you want to find where all your friends are at, good luck. There was no cell phones.
Yeah.
You had to figure out where they were at. Like,
yeah.
Nowadays, everybody's so connected through their phone. To me, it's just,
well, we
it's
make
kind
a
of nice
concerted
sometimes
effort.
to get away from that.
Well, you do. You need to get away from it, Joe. And that's Neil and I were talking a little bit about that, like taking trips and like disconnecting. It was, I went camping in Lake George last 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
It's really right. And it's like, I was
Yeah.
like, I hope to God I don't have cell signal up here. And, lo and behold, I did. But, like, it's nice to check in with family, let them know you're okay. But you also have to make a concerted effort all the time to put down the device, unplug, read a book, listen to a book if you have to, but like really try and disconnect from the major.
Right. Well, one of the nice things with the tournaments, like, for example, with the FLW, they don't. You're not allowed to be on your cell phone unless it's an emergency. There's a couple times you can use it, like emergencies. In a pinch, you're allowed to use it, but they don't want you on the phone. And to me, that's one of the nice parts. Also, about tournament fishing is not having your phone constantly go off and not having to look at it, and just putting it down. It's kind of comforting. It's like my own time. You're out there and you're just in your head with the fish, kind of.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, when I go fishing, I typically try not to take it out. That's why a lot of times I don't have any pictures or videos or anything when I do go. And I have a couple of friends who say, "Well, you don't catch fish." It's like, well, yeah, I do. I just don't take pictures of them. Like I get them back in the water and they're good to go. It's just, I'm not gonna live my life viewing everything through the lens of a camera or through the lens of my phone or sitting there and text. Now, there are times where Donna would say that I have a little bit of a phone addiction, but I don't.
Everybody gets caught up in refreshing Twitter or Instagram or whatever.
But you really
Pornhub.com.
Well, maybe if you're somebody's son who's running for.
Delete that out. We might get banned.
Oh no, I might get banned and it might get taken out. But no, but you really do have to make a concerted effort to disconnect, and you have to make a concerted effort to live a better life and a fulfilled life by communicating face to face with people, interacting with people. I mean, this coronavirus lockdown here in the state is getting worse again. It's like, I know people who still, like, up until a month ago hadn't seen another soul except for like from a distance. Like, this kid was like, I haven't hugged my mom since, he's an older guy. He's like, his mom's older. He's like, I haven't hugged my mom or like, told her everything was okay or gotten more than like closer than 10 feet from her since February. And I said, yeah, that's not healthy, man. Like, and he's not married. He doesn't have any, like, he doesn't have kids or anything. So it's like, who are you interacting with? Because that's got to do something to you psychologically. And on the flip side, communicating just through devices does the same exact thing, man. Like, I love talking to you, but we have great conversations on the phone and, here when we're recording this, but like when we're together, it's a whole different atmosphere. It's like a whole different conversation that happens because you feed off of each other. You see each other. You can you get that body language that you can't even see through video. And yeah, which brings me to, my last point. It's like, you get your ass up here, man. This guy, exactly. This guy caught a salmon the other day at my lake. He posted a video. He's like, "Oh, it was my second cast of the day, and I caught one." I'm like, "You bastard!" Like, you bastard. He's like, they were blitzing on the surface again, like that time I was out there with my nephew, and he casted a spoon out there and caught him right on the surface. Nice size. Sometimes, just
like I said before, some of my better fishing days are the days I go out there with no expectations, and and it just happens. I'll use the same analogy as before. I can't tell you how many tournaments I've fished with boaters when the boater will be like, they'll be up there practicing all week, and they'll tell you, I've been up here all week and I haven't caught a thing. And what ends up happening is those are the tournament days we end up catching tons of them. Where in the opposite situation is where I'll have a boater who'll say they've been up there all week practicing, and I'm on them, I'm on 20 pounds a day at least. We'll get out there and just do nothing. Yeah. It's weird how that works.
That's where enjoying things really is important. You're enjoying it for doing it, not for the outcomes, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. So Joe, what do you have coming up? I think if I remember correctly, you said that there were no more tournaments going on right now up here.
So around me, I think there's another local tournament, like another club tournament coming up around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I got to look into that. But as far as like the bigger tournament series, I think the next one for me will be in January, hopefully. And that will be down south.
Okay.
I was looking at the schedule the other day for the FLW Toyota Series, the Southern League, and I think they have an event in February down in Florida that I was interested in,
Nice.
that I want to do. But then I was looking at I forget if it's called the Midwest or whatever. It's like the Texas area. They have some in January, and I want to try to do at least one of those, just to get the season started early. And I was going to start looking down south too, because they do have smaller tournaments down south that, go through the winter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to look into that and, see if I can get into some. Because right now, for me, here comes my boring time. No fishing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the reservoirs by me close real early.
Yeah.
It's actually been closed for over 2.5 weeks now. And that's the place where, you can rent a boat and go out. It's just an electric boat. But at least you can get out in a boat. If I owned a boat, I could still go out to the Potomac or the Chesapeake and fish through the winter. So,
yeah, that's what Brian went down. He couldn't make it on Sunday with me down to Sandy Hook, but he went on Monday and he went to another beach, and he was saying, like, he's like, bro, like, I didn't even have a bite. He's like, we need a boat. Like, he's like this. He's on the same forums as me. He's like, bro, like, I was watching these videos of these guys catching, beautiful stripers and everything, like, just far enough offshore where, like, we couldn't reach them.
yeah, I mean,
yeah, changes your life, man.
Don't get me wrong, shore fish, I mean, you could definitely catch them fishing from the shore. It's just so much. It's definitely a tougher game. You can't get to the places you need to be, and you also can't move as freely. Like with bass fishing with the trolling motor, like that's a game changer. Just to be able to constantly move at a slow speed, just covering water. No, I really want to get a boat here. Like Brian said, it's a game changer. It makes life easier.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to have some nice weather next week too, like, in the 50s.
The 50s is not bad. We're supposed to get something like that, I think. We're supposed to have a bout of bad weather this weekend, and then we're going to get back up there. So I feel you there, man. Because right now it's 47. It's rainy. Looks like we're down to 42 overnight. And it's just going to be miserable. It's been raining for like 2 days. Saturday, we're looking at a little bit of sun.
Yeah.
And then Sunday's actually supposed to be 59, but PM rain. I was going to try and head down the shore and do some more fishing, but my buddy's going out on a party boat tomorrow for stripers.
They're going to catch them
in the rain. Yeah, man. It's
for sure. I mean, this is the time of year, for the rockfish or stripers, whatever you guys call them up there. This is the time of year.
So you say rockfish, and I think a rock bass, right? Which are those little panfish. You say rockfish, and I think of that, and it's But yeah, I always forget that you call it something else. It's kind of
in Maryland we call them rockfish.
Yeah.
Striped bass, people call them rockfish.
It's always interesting to me the way that things are called different things elsewhere, right? Like, I don't know, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is weird. I think Maryland's one of the only states, if not the only state, that calls striped bass rockfish. I mean, but like you said, when you call them rockfish, people think of like rock bass or
right.
They're not thinking stripers.
No, because you told me. I remember you text me one day that you were out on the water with some friends doing striper fishing, but you said rock fishing. It was like, I was like, oh, cool, man. You're going for, like, oh yeah, you're gonna catch some perch while you're out there too, bro.
Great. Yeah, you're trolling for perch, huh?
Like, all right, man. But did you send me pictures like, oh, that's what he means? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, striped bass. Yeah, it's weird because we have them, like Liberty Reservoir has them. They're the hybrid bass, which it is a strike, but people call them striped bass. They won't call them rockfish in there. But if they're in the bay, they're rockfish. That's what we call them. But we used to call October in November. What we called October, we used to call it Rocktober, and we would go all the way to December because the rockfish. We used to go down the it's Chesapeake, Virginia. It's where the bay meets the ocean.
Yes.
And the rockfish come in off the ocean to go back in the bay to spawn. And if you went out there anytime, middle October through November, you were catching ginormous rockfish. I think the biggest we got, I have 2 pictures of them. I think the one was like 51 inches and 48 pounds. And the other one was like 48 inches and 46 pounds. They were almost pound per inch, just huge striped bass, excuse me. And everybody uses eel out there that time of year, which I hate touching and hooking them up, but
you just take
live eel.
Like, you use live eel. They're like, oh, what are you using? And I'm like, I'm using lures, man. And they're like, no, you got to use eel. And it's like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
You had to use eel, and you take them and like you hook them like right through the head type of deal, and the rockfish just destroy them.
Really?
Yeah. They love those things. It's like Doritos to them. Yeah, it's insane. I would never thought to fish with them. And apparently, the area we were in, there was only certain times a year you could fish with live eel. But they're the grossest looking things. I wear gloves when I put them on the hooks because I hate touching them. Because like they wrap around you and they're like.
I won't say anything, man. We fished once for weak fish, which I found out is speckled sea trout, I believe.
Yep.
Which I had no idea that's what it was when we were fishing for it. And we were using bloodworms. And I'm like, I do not want to touch this thing, man. Like, that's just like, why is it called a bloodworm number one? I mean, I was a kid. I mean, nowadays I touch pretty much anything, but it's some things.
Dude, there's eels. They just look like a snake kind of, and they like wrap around you and they're just those, no.
Yeah.
I did not like that.
But Joe,
like you said, I'll touch lots of stuff, but
we are coming up on the hour here, man. I really appreciate you joining. I know we talked a little bit about getting you on. I think you and I always have some great conversations. It's always just nice, kind of talking.
Yeah, we go all over the place, huh?
Yeah, but I love it.
You never know if I'm on a, I might end up in a grocery store somewhere,
or your dog might be going crazy behind you.
Oh yeah.
Ranger.
Sorry guys, but the grocery store, that was the last minute trip I forgot I needed to take.
No worries, man. That's why we're not on video today. So I know you miss our beautiful faces. We'll get you on. We'll get you on again in a couple weeks.
We could try video tomorrow or something. Shoot.
Yeah, why not?
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
I always got stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I always have stuff to talk about with you too, man. And it's always a pleasure. I love you, brother. And
love you too, man.
We'll talk soon, all right?
All right, buddy. See ya.
All right, Joe. Bye. All right, so that was Hacker Outdoors with Joey McCormack. If you like what you heard, please give us a like or leave a comment below. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Hacker Outdoors and YouTube at Hacker Brothers Adventures. Joey McCormack can be found all over the web. I will go ahead and link to his Instagram below, where you can definitely give him a follow. And I would definitely have him back on so we can continue our conversation about some random topics, get back into some fishing a little bit, and maybe tell a few more of those stories about the family and what they've been up to over the years in this fishing environment of ours. Thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.